Drake. May 2010, Ogden Theater in Denver, Colorado. Drake was 23 years old, riding high on the success of his debut album and establishing himself as hip-hop's next big star. During his performance, he did something that was becoming his signature move, inviting a female fan on stage for a dance segment. What happened next was captured on video and would haunt his reputation for over a decade. The fan, later identified as Tia Ray, was 17 years old, a high school student who was thrilled to meet her idol. The power dynamic was obvious from the start. A global superstar with millions of fans, and a teenage girl who probably never imagined she'd be on stage with one of her favorite artists. The age of consent in Colorado is 17, so technically what happened wasn't illegal, but legality and appropriateness are two very different things. The video shows Drake complimenting her appearance in ways that were clearly sexual. He then proceeded to kiss her neck, cheeks, forehead, and lips multiple times while standing behind her and fondling her breasts. He pulled down the back of her shirt to kiss her again, and even commented on her shampoo scent, showing a level of physical intimacy that was completely inappropriate for a public setting with a minor. But here's where it gets really problematic. Midway through this interaction, Drake asked her age. When she replied 17, his response was telling. He said, "I can't go to jail yet, man. 17? Why do you look like that? You thick. Look at all this." But instead of stopping the inappropriate behavior, he continued, saying, "I don't know if I should feel guilty or not, but I had fun. I like the way your breasts feel against my chest. Think about what that moment reveals." Drake acknowledged that he was engaging in questionable behavior with a minor. "I can't go to jail yet," but instead of immediately ending the interaction, he continued and even explicitly commented on the sexual nature of what he was doing. That shows a level of calculated decision-making that makes the whole situation more disturbing. Tupac Shakur, November 1993, Parker Meridien Hotel, New York City. Ayanna Jackson, a 19-year-old from Brooklyn, first met Tupac at Nell's nightclub in Manhattan. She described herself as starstruck, just a young fan excited to meet one of hip-hop's rising stars. They danced, flirted, and according to both their accounts, had consensual sexual contact that first night. But what started as fan admiration and mutual attraction would become one of the most documented and controversial assault cases in hip-hop history. Over the next few days, Tupac contacted Jackson through his road manager, Charles Fuller, inviting her back to the hotel for what she thought were casual hangouts. Jackson, influenced by her admiration for the rapper, saw these as opportunities to spend time with someone she looked up to. November 18, 1993, the night that would change both their lives forever. Jackson arrived at Tupac's suite at the Parker Meridien Hotel after being invited by Fuller. Tupac was there with his associates, including Jacques Haitian Jack Agnand and Walter King Tut Johnson. They smoked weed and drank vodka before Tupac led Jackson to a bedroom. What happened next is where the accounts diverge completely, but Jackson's testimony provides disturbing details about how quickly a consensual situation can turn into assault. Jackson said she began giving Tupac a massage while straddling him when he grabbed her braids, pulled her in for a kiss, and held her head down. Then the door opened and his friends entered, making lewd comments about her body. According to Jackson's account, Tupac allegedly said, "These are my boys. I like you so much I decided to share you with them." Despite her protests and repeated no's, her dress and pantyhose were ripped off. Jackson claimed Tupac took advantage of her first, then left, after which Haitian Jack and King Tut did the same, while Fuller watched but didn't participate. The psychological trauma Jackson described is heartbreaking. She said she froze in shock, having an out-of-body experience, completely dissociating from what was happening to her. This is a common response to assault, the mind's way of protecting itself from unbearable trauma. The trial that followed was a media circus. Beginning in September 1994 in New York Supreme Court, prosecutor Francine James presented Jackson's testimony while defense lawyer Michael Warren argued consent and highlighted Jackson's prior encounters with Tupac. The case was complicated by Tupac's celebrity status and the cultural moment. This was peak East Coast hip-hop, and Tupac was seen as a voice for social justice. On December 1st, 1994, Tupac and Fuller were convicted of first-degree abuse, but acquitted of sodomy and weapons charges. The jury found them guilty of groping Jackson against her will, which is still a serious felony. Tupac faced up to 7 years in prison. On February 7, 1995, Tupac was sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. He began serving at Clinton Correctional Facility on February 14, 1995, expressing remorse for the tragic event but maintaining his innocence. After 9 months, he was released on October 12, 1995, on $1.4 million bail posted by Death Row Records' Suge Knight. Sean Diddy Combs. This isn't just one incident or one victim. We're talking about over 120 new lawsuits that emerged following Diddy's federal indictment in September 2024, with accusations spanning decades and involving multiple women who described themselves as fans or admirers who encountered Diddy at his legendary parties, industry events, and exclusive gatherings. The pattern that emerges from these allegations is absolutely chilling. Accusers often describe being starstruck fans invited to exclusive events, where power imbalances allegedly enabled systematic abuse. We're talking about drug-facilitated assaults, threats, isolation tactics, and what federal prosecutors describe as freak-off parties, where women were allegedly forced to participate in recorded sexual acts. Let's start with one of the earliest and most disturbing cases. In 1991, Joy Dickerson Neal was a 19-year-old Syracuse University student and aspiring TV host who was also a fan of Combs, then known as Puff Daddy. She met him at a Bad Boy Records event in Harlem and was invited to dinner, viewing it as a career opportunity due to her admiration for the rising mogul. According to her lawsuit filed in November 2023, after dinner on January 3, 1991, Combs allegedly spiked her drink at a restaurant, then took her to a hotel where he violated her while she was incapacitated. But the violation didn't end there. She claimed he filmed the assault and showed the revenge porn to others in the industry, using it to damage her reputation and career prospects. This wasn't just a violation, it was strategic destruction of a young woman's future. Crystal McKinney's case from 2003 follows a similar pattern. She was a 22-year-old model and fan who met Diddy at a Men's Fashion Week event where he promised career help. At his studio, Diddy allegedly forced her to smoke laced marijuana, then assaulted her in a bathroom despite her protests. The combination of drugs and isolation is a pattern we see repeatedly in these cases. April Lamprose's allegations span multiple years from 1995 to 2001, describing how she met Diddy as a fashion student and fan in 1994 at a New York bar where he offered mentorship. Over the years, Diddy allegedly assaulted her multiple times, including drugging and sexual assault in 1995, forcing ecstasy and in 1996, and coercing a threesome in 2001. This shows how predators can maintain long-term control over victims through repeated trauma and manipulation. But what makes Diddy's case unique is the scale and organization of the alleged crimes. Federal prosecutors have charged him with racketeering conspiracy, trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. This isn't just individual assault. It's alleged to be a criminal enterprise that used Diddy's business empire to facilitate systematic abuse. The federal indictment describes freak-offs, elaborate sexual performances that Diddy allegedly orchestrated, recorded, and sometimes participated in. Prosecutors claim these events involved drugging participants, coercing sexual acts, and creating compromising recordings that could be used for blackmail. When federal agents raided Diddy's homes in March 2024, they reportedly found drugs, firearms, and over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, evidence they say supports the trafficking charges. The Diddy case represents everything wrong with how power operates in the entertainment industry. Young women drawn to the glamour and opportunity of hip-hop culture found themselves trapped in situations where their admiration and trust were exploited in the worst possible ways. The fact that this allegedly went on for decades shows how money, power, and celebrity status can create a protective bubble around even the most heinous crimes. As these federal cases proceed, they're likely to expose even more about how abuse operates in hip-hop culture. The recordings, the witnesses, the financial records, all of it could reveal a network of enablers and participants who help maintain this alleged system of exploitation. For the culture we love, this case represents a reckoning that's long overdue. Big Sean. Picture this. August 4th, 2011, Art Park State Park in Lewiston, New York. Big Sean, then 23 and riding high on his debut album Finally Famous, was opening for Wiz Khalifa on the Rolling Papers tour. The energy was electric, the crowd was hyped, and somewhere in that mix was a 17-year-old high school student who was just trying to live her best fangirl life. Now, what exactly went down backstage is where things get murky as hell. The accuser claimed that Big Sean and his associate Willie Syed Taint-Tone Hansbrough held her against her will in a backstage trailer and forcibly touched her inappropriately. We're talking about restraint, we're talking about non-consensual contact, and we're talking about a minor who was transported to the hospital for examination after the alleged incident. The charges came down hard and fast: third-degree criminal sexual act, forcible touching, and second-degree unlawful imprisonment. All misdemeanors, but still carrying potential jail time. Both Big Sean and Hansbrough got arrested that same night in Buffalo, posted $500 bail each, and suddenly the rising rap star found himself in a legal nightmare. But here's where the street politics got real. Big Sean's legal team wasn't playing around. His lawyer, Scott Lehman, came out swinging, stating, "Both men were charged with misdemeanors and they both vehemently deny the allegations. I am confident that after further investigation, both men will be vindicated." The case moved through the system, and by October 26, 2011, we saw how the game really works in these situations. The plea deal that came down was textbook celebrity justice. Prosecutors dropped sexual abuse and forcible touching charges in exchange for Big Sean pleading guilty to second-degree unlawful imprisonment. He walked away with a $750 fine. That's probably less than what he spent on chains that week. No jail time, no probation, just a slap on the wrist and a "don't do it again" warning. Mack Maine, August 22, 2013, Oklahoma City, Chesapeake Energy Arena. Mack Maine was rolling with Lil Wayne's America's Most Wanted tour, living that high-life celebrity lifestyle. After the show wrapped up, two young women in their early 20s, Rachel Reed and her friend Kaylee Maddox, got the invitation that every fan dreams of: come party on the tour bus with the stars. Now, what these women thought would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience turned into an absolute nightmare that would leave one of them eating through a straw for 6 weeks. According to the police affidavit, once they got on that bus, Mack Maine put his hand up Reed's dress and grabbed her breast without any consent whatsoever. When Reed slapped his hand away and tried to bounce with her friend, that's when this situation went from assault to straight up battery. The details of what happened next are disturbing as hell. As Maddox was trying to leave the bus and called back for her friend Reed, Mack Maine allegedly held the door shut to prevent their exit, then punched Maddox directly in the face. We're not talking about a slap or a push. This dude broke her jaw in 2 places with that punch, leaving her knocked down and seriously injured. The medical aftermath was no joke either. Maddox required serious treatment and was on a liquid diet for 6 weeks while her jaw healed. Meanwhile, Reed was dealing with the trauma of being sexually assaulted by someone she looked up to as a fan. Both women reported the incident to Oklahoma City police, and the wheels of justice started turning, but slowly, as they always do when celebrities are involved. The Oklahoma County District Attorney David Prater announced charges on August 30th, 2013. 1 count of sexual battery felony for groping Reed, and 1 count of aggravated assault and battery felony for punching Maddox. These weren't light charges either. The aggravated assault alone could have gotten him 10 years in prison if convicted. But here's where the celebrity justice system showed its true colors once again. Formal charges were filed on September 13th, 2013. Mack Maine turned himself in on September 20th and got released on just $9,000 bond. For context, that's probably less than what he spent on jewelry that month, but it was enough to keep him out of jail while his lawyers worked their magic. Slow Thigh. September 7th, 2021, the Bullingdon venue in Oxford, England. Slow Thigh was performing as part of his tour, bringing that high-energy UK grime that had earned him a Mercury Prize nomination and Grammy recognition. Before the show even started, he and his friend Alex Blake Walker met a group of women on Cowley Road, including 2 who would later become the center of this devastating case. Here's where the fan dynamic becomes crucial. One of the women was described as a huge fan of Slow Thigh, and the rapper offered some of them VIP tickets to the gig. This is that classic power imbalance we keep seeing. Young fans, excited to meet their idol, accepting invitations that seem like once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. After the concert, the women joined Slow Thigh and his crew on the tour bus for what they thought would be a harmless after-party. But this is where the night took a dark turn. The group moved to a house party at one of the women's homes, and according to prosecutors, Slow Thigh set 2 specific rules: no phones and no boys. The prosecution later argued this showed a mindset geared towards sexual activity without oversight or witnesses, basically creating the perfect conditions for what they alleged happened next. The charges that came down were serious as hell. According to prosecutor Heather Stango, the 2 women were isolated from their friends and taken to a rooftop area where Blake Walker allegedly violated the first complainant while Slow Thigh encouraged him, including high fives and discussions of tag teams and swapping the girls. The prosecution claimed Slow Thigh then took advantage of the second complainant twice, with Blake Walker's encouragement. The details that emerged during the trial were disturbing. One woman told police, "I said stop to him. Slow Thigh was trying to pull my hair so I would continue. They were saying, 'No, it's safe, we'll look after you. It's safe with us.' They were saying, 'It's so great, can't believe this is happening,' and fist bumping each other." The women claimed they felt trapped and overwhelmed, with the incident ending when friends intervened, prompting Slow Thigh to flee by jumping from the roof. But Slow Thigh and Blake Walker told a completely different story. They admitted to sexual activity, but insisted it was fully consensual, describing it as mutual and enthusiastic. Slow Thigh testified, "I know she was consenting, there wasn't a question." They denied any encouragement of non-consensual acts, portraying the fist bumps as unrelated to the sexual activity. The women reported the incident to police on September 8, 2021, just hours after it occurred. However, the legal process moved slowly. Slowthai and Blake Walker were arrested and interviewed that day, but released pending investigation. It took nearly 2 years for charges to be filed, which was attributed to UK court backlogs and funding cuts that plagued the British justice system. When charges finally came down on May 16, 2023, they were severe. Slowthai faced 2 counts of sexual violation against 1 woman, while Blake Walker was charged with 1 count of sexual violation and 2 of sexual assault involving both women. The charges were later adjusted to 3 joint sexual violation counts plus 1 sexual assault for Blake Walker. The verdict came on December 16, 2024. After over 10 hours of deliberation, the jury returned majority not guilty verdicts on all charges. Slowthai and Blake Walker were cleared of the 3 joint sexual assault counts and Blake Walker of the assault count. Slowthai burst into tears in the dock, with cries from the public gallery, as Judge Pringle noted the case's emotional intensity. But here's the thing about acquittals in sexual assault cases. They don't necessarily mean the allegations were false, just that the prosecution couldn't prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Statistics show that only about 1 to 2% of reported sexual assault cases in the UK lead to charges, highlighting how difficult these cases are to prosecute successfully. The acquittal allowed Slowthai to resume his career, though the damage to his reputation was already done. Discussions on platforms like Reddit highlight the divisions in public opinion. Some view the not guilty verdict as complete exoneration, while others note the high bar for assault convictions. His defense team's prediction about lasting stigma proved accurate. Even with the legal victory, questions about his character remain. Tekashi 69, February 21, 2015, a party in Harlem, New York. Daniel Hernandez, as he was known then, was just 18 years old and trying to build his online presence through social media and provocative content. He wasn't famous yet, but he was already showing the boundary-pushing behavior that would later make him a household name for all the wrong reasons. At this party, he met an underage fan, and let me be crystal clear here, this wasn't some gray area situation where ages were unclear. According to the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal complaint, 3 videos were filmed and later posted online that showed explicit acts. We're talking about a middle schooler being exploited and having that exploitation broadcast to the world. When confronted by police, Hernandez admitted, "That is me on all the videos. I was tagged on Instagram, and then I reposted the videos." But here's where the story gets even worse. In her 2020 lawsuit, the victim claimed she was under the influence of drugs and alcohol provided by Hernandez and Anderson, rendering her unable to consent. The legal process that followed was a masterclass in how celebrity privilege and good lawyers can minimize even the most serious charges. Hernandez was arrested on March 5, 2015, along with Anderson, facing multiple felonies, 3 counts of use of a child in a performance. These were serious charges that could have resulted in years in prison and mandatory sex offender registration. But instead of facing the full weight of justice, Hernandez got the kind of deal that makes you lose faith in the system. On October 20th, 2015, he pleaded guilty to 1 felony count of use of a child in a performance. The plea deal deferred sentencing for 2 years, requiring him to get his GED, undergo mental health treatment, avoid new arrests, and stay away from explicit social media posts. If he complied with these terms, he would avoid prison and offender registration. Nelly. October 6, 2017, a Seattle nightclub where Nelly was DJing during his tour with Florida Georgia Line. The night started innocently enough when 21-year-old University of Washington student Monique Green, working as a hostess at the club, approached Nelly for photos. As a fan, this seemed like a dream come true, getting to meet one of hip-hop's biggest stars in an intimate setting. But what started as fan appreciation quickly turned into something much darker. Green and a friend were invited to an after-party on Nelly's tour bus, parked at a Walmart in Auburn, Washington, around 3:45 a.m. on October 7th. They went thinking they'd be partying with the star and his crew, drinking and socializing in what seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. According to Green's lawsuit and police report, after her friend left the bus, Nelly invited her into a private bedroom area. What happened next, according to Green, was a nightmare that would haunt her for years. She alleged that Nelly began masturbating in front of her, then forced her to perform sexual actions despite her protest, before taking advantage of her while ignoring her repeated no's and attempts to leave. The psychological terror didn't end with the physical assault. Green claimed that as she tried to leave, Nelly told her, "I will find you," a threat that would make any 21-year-old college student fear for her safety. She underwent a kit examination, and police noted signs of distress, but the real battle was just beginning. Green called 911 at 3:48 a.m. on October 7, 2017, reporting the assault to Auburn Auburn police. Nelly was arrested that morning on suspicion of second-degree violation and booked into jail, but he was released hours later as the investigation continued. Police found probable cause for assault based on Green's statement and condition, but what happened next shows how celebrity power can corrupt the justice process. Nelly's response was swift and aggressive. He posted on social media calling the claims false, and his attorney Scott Rosenblum called the accusation completely fabricated and motivated by greed and vindictiveness. But it wasn't just Nelly and his team fighting back. His fan base launched a vicious campaign against Green that shows the toxic side of celebrity worship. The harassment was so intense and coordinated that it achieved its goal, silencing the victim. The criminal case was dropped on December 14, 2017 by King County prosecutors, who stated they could not proceed without Green's cooperation. Green withdrew due to the overwhelming online harassment from Nelly's fans and the constant public denials from Nelly himself, who kept suggesting the accusation was a setup. But Green wasn't done fighting. On December 20, 2017, she filed a civil lawsuit in King County Superior Court against Nelly for assault, battery, and defamation, seeking damages. She argued that Nelly's public statements labeling her a liar damaged her reputation and caused additional emotional distress beyond the original assault. Essex police opened a criminal investigation in February 2018 for the December incident, but it was dropped in April 2019 due to insufficient evidence. Meanwhile, Nelly countersued Green in January 2018 for defamation, claiming the allegations harmed his career and family. The legal resolution was typical of celebrity cases. All parties reached a mutual settlement on September 24, 2018, with the lawsuit dismissed with prejudice, meaning Green could not refile. Terms were confidential, but Nelly's attorney claimed no money was paid, a statement disputed by Green's lawyer, Karen Kohler, who affirmed Green stood 100% by her allegations. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.